One of our other top stories, the US Senate advancing a resolution to end US military support for the Saudi-led coalition in the war in Yemen. Daniel Schneiderman is Deputy US Programme Director at the International Crisis Group and also served as the White House National Security Council Director for Yemen. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. How significant do you think this is?
Well, Lauren, first, thanks for letting me have the opportunity to be with you. I think it's important for your viewers to understand that there's a lot of procedural steps still before the United States Senate might pass something and send it over to the House of Representatives for action. But it's certainly a significant moment in that it enshrines that there is a continuing bipartisan level of frustration with the way that the administration is conducting its policy as it relates to Yemen, and by extension, the way that the Saudi-led coalition has conducted the war in Yemen. So I think it's a significant moment. There's still a number of procedural steps to go through, but an important milestone was reached today.
And why do you think the balance has shifted in this way? Why do you think that they've taken this step now?
Well, you know, it's interesting. If you look back since January 2017, when President Trump was inaugurated, there's been a pretty consistent level of bipartisan frustration with the way that the war has been going and the impact of the humanitarian crisis on the people of Yemen. And I think that that has only increased over time. And I think, frankly, a number of organizations, Crisis Group included, have called for a need to push for a peace process pretty consistently. And I think members have been paying close attention to the scope and scale of the humanitarian crisis in particular. And there are a number of groups here in Washington who have been very effective at raising the profile of the conflict. People like Martin Griffiths and Lise Grande from the United Nations deserve a lot of credit for helping push this process along, move the peace process and the humanitarian situation, or try to, in a positive direction. So I think that all of that has combined to mix into a very potent sort of feeling on the Hill, again, as I said, bipartisan in nature, to try to do more to find ways to resolve the conflict and to end the U.S.'s role in supporting the coalition's efforts.
And practically, how much difference would it make if they did stop supporting the Saudi-led coalition?
Well, I think it's Secretary Mattis that said at an event at the U.S. Institute of Peace that the coalition could continue a certain amount of its activities without the refueling support that the United States was providing. I think the impact would more be felt in the court of public opinion. If the U.S. were to cease its support of the coalition, it would be a powerful signal that the United States believes that it's time to push for a peaceful resolution of the conflict. It also, all of these discussions, Lauren, give leverage to the U.S. executive branch to go to the Saudis and other members of the coalition and say, look, the Congress may force our hand. We need you to work hand in glove with us to try to push for a diplomatic solution. And that may very well have helped to break the logjam and get things to talk. So, you know, it's certainly the Saudis and Emiratis would have been involved in trying to help create the environment for parties to sit down at the table in Sweden. So even the discussion of the kinds of steps that are being contemplated helps to put pressure on the parties to come to a peaceful resolution of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the efforts in Sweden. We've had the news this evening that the two warring sides are now considering these documents from the United Nations, which would include options for a political framework and the reopening of Sana'a Airport and the status of Hodeidah and the economic situation. How confident are you that what they've come up with is the right approach? Does it sound good to you? Does it sound workable?
Well, first, I have to give Martin Griffiths a lot of credit for getting the process as far as he had. He's worked incredibly hard since he took office, and he's got a great team working for him. He's also worked, again, as I said, very effectively with Lise Grande, the UN humanitarian coordinator. So they deserve a lot of credit for a coordinated approach to trying to resolve the conflict. I am cautiously optimistic that what the UN is crafting is the start of a process. I think it would be unrealistic to expect that out of one set of consultations in Sweden, we're moving immediately to a peace process. But what it sounds like Martin Griffiths has been able to put together is a set of confidence-building measures that will help to move the conflict in the right direction, de-escalate, and really to talk about what we need now, we need a ceasefire in the country and a guarantee from all parties that Hodeidah, the major port on the Red Sea, will remain open and that food and medicine will be able to flow to the commercial markets and that humanitarian assistance will be able to continue to flow across the country. So I give Martin a lot of credit for getting things where we are, and I'm cautiously optimistic about where things are going, but I'm also realistic about how difficult the peace process is going to be.
Daniel Schneiderman from International Crisis Group, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. French prosecutors have identified